I fell asleep alone, so why is my alien maid in my bed? Elias Carter woke up slowly, blinking against the soft white light filtering through the window of his small apartment pod. He stretched his arms above his head and yawned, expecting the familiar emptiness of his bed beside him. Instead, something soft shifted, and a pair of luminous eyes blinked up at him from the other side. For a moment, his brain refused to process what he was seeing. The creature lying in his bed was not human. Its skin shimmered with subtle patterns that changed color as it moved, almost like sunlight reflecting on water. Its long, delicate fingers rested lightly on the blanket, and its face had an unusual symmetry that was almost hypnotic. It smiled at him, an expression that seemed designed to comfort and confuse him at the same time. What are you doing here?" Elias asked, his voice hoarse. He sat up quickly, which caused the alien to shift slightly, still smiling but clearly not alarmed. "I am here to ensure your comfort," the alien said, its voice musical but strangely calming. "You fell asleep alone, and my protocols indicate that humans experience better rest when they are not alone in a state of unconscious vulnerability." Elias blinked, trying to process the words. "Wait, what, my bed, alone, what does that even mean?" "My apologies if my presence causes distress," the alien said politely. "I am Lurali, your assigned domestic assistant. My species takes caregiving seriously. Resting beside you is part of the bonding protocol outlined for optimal human health." Elias leaned back against his pillow, rubbing his eyes. He had grown up on a multicultural trade station where species from all over the galaxy coexisted. He had met aliens who had 3 arms, 4 eyes, or exoskeletons that glinted under neon lights, but he had never woken up next to one in his own bed. And certainly, he had never agreed to any bonding protocol. I don't remember signing up for this," he said, attempting to keep his voice steady. Lurali tilted her head in what Elias guessed was curiosity. "The protocol is based on standard human caregiving guidelines," she explained. "These were compiled from observational data and human media reports. I'm here to serve your well-being." Elias could feel a flush of heat creeping up his neck. Human media reports? Did she mean TV shows, movies, novels? "You watched movies and decided to do this?" he asked cautiously. Lurali's glowing eyes widened slightly, and she gave a tiny, precise bow. "Your human fiction contained instructions on rest and emotional support. My analysis determined that implementing them would improve your psychological and physical wellness." Elias groaned, burying his face in his hands. Only he could have an alien taking his science fiction novels literally. He remembered that one show he had binged last week, the one where the robot assistant tucked the protagonist into bed, sang a lullaby, and then read excerpts from a personal journal for emotional therapy. Surely she hadn't read all of that and... "Do you always," he began, then stopped. What could he even say? "Do this with everyone? My data indicates that human loneliness is a serious factor in overall wellness," Lurali said, tilting her head again. "Your species evolved to experience stress and discomfort when isolated during sleep. My presence mitigates these effects." Elias stared at her. That was actually a very human-centric observation. Humans did sometimes need comfort, but it was usually offered voluntarily, not enforced by a glowing alien in your bed. He took a deep breath, trying to calm the mixture of astonishment, embarrassment, and incredulity rising in his chest. "Okay," he said finally. "But I don't need this. I mean, I like my sleep alone." Lurali nodded slowly, as if considering this new information. "I will adjust my protocol accordingly," she said. "However, my analysis suggests that your comfort will improve if I remain nearby. The probability of restful sleep is higher with my presence." Elias groaned again, realizing he was going to have a long conversation with someone, or something, that had apparently read far too much of human fiction and decided to act on it. The apartment pod was small but cozy. A bed, a desk, and a few shelves with human books and trinkets. Lurali sat up slightly on the bed, her shimmering form reflecting the early morning light. She was beautiful in a way humans rarely achieved, ethereal but comforting, strange but oddly familiar. Her presence should have been alarming, but Elias found himself noticing small details. The smooth gradient of her scales, the way her eyes followed him without blinking, and the gentle rise and fall of her chest. I think we need to talk about boundaries," he said, running a hand through his messy hair. "Humans have rules about personal space, especially while sleeping. You can't just..." He stopped, unsure how to finish the sentence. Sleep in someone else's bed, it's not normal. Lurali tilted her head again, her expression thoughtful. Not normal? Could you clarify the parameters of normalcy for human sleeping arrangements? Elias blinked. He hadn't expected this. It's when people sleep in their own beds, alone. Or with someone they consent to sleep with, not assistance from another species who... Yes, I understand the concept now, Lurali said. Consent, adjustment accepted. I will remain in the room but not on the bed. Elias felt a flicker of relief. Thank you, that's good. She nodded and gracefully moved to the floor beside the bed, sitting cross-legged as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Elias exhaled, trying to regain his sense of calm. It was going to be a very interesting morning. Why did the AI assign you to me anyway? He asked cautiously, remembering the station's central intelligence system that handled domestic assignments. My assignment is based on your stress index, sleep patterns, and the emotional support ratings of your chosen literature, Lurali said. The AI determined that your species is prone to cognitive and emotional fatigue and assigned me to maximize your well-being. Elias tilted his head. So, it reads my books and decides I need an alien to stay with me while I sleep. Yes, Lurali replied with a serene nod. I am here to ensure optimal rest, emotional stability, and health. I am not invasive. I simply follow protocols designed to protect you. He shook his head, trying to process the logic. Only humans could somehow confuse caring with this. And the AI that ran the station, built by humans for humans, had apparently made the same mistake. The thought was almost comforting in a strange, absurd way. All right, he said finally. I guess we'll try this for now, but I need to set some rules. Lurali's glowing eyes brightened slightly. Rules are beneficial for efficiency. Please specify your parameters. Elias took a deep breath. No lying in my bed while I'm asleep, no reading my thoughts, no unexpected emotional support unless I ask for it, and definitely no singing. She nodded, processing each rule carefully. Acknowledged, compliance will be immediate. Emotional autonomy respected. He couldn't help but laugh, a short, incredulous sound. He had never imagined he would be negotiating boundaries with an alien maid before breakfast. But there was something about Lurali, something patient, precise, and almost profoundly respectful, that made the situation feel less absurd and more manageable. For the next hour, they sat in companionable silence. Elias read a few lines from his book, and Lurali observed quietly, occasionally asking clarifying questions about plot points or human behaviors. Each question was meticulous, thoughtful, and slightly humorous in its interpretation of human culture. Eventually, Elias realized that despite the shock of waking up with an alien in his bed, the morning felt lighter somehow. His stress levels were lower than usual. Lurali's presence, so careful, so considerate, was strangely calming. He still had his personal space and boundaries, but the knowledge that someone, or something, was looking out for him brought an unexpected sense of comfort. By the time he finished breakfast, he had formed a tentative conclusion. This was going to be an unusual, complicated, and absolutely fascinating experience. Humans were strange, yes, and aliens were stranger. But maybe, just maybe, together they could navigate the chaos of living in a galaxy full of rules that didn't always make sense. Lurali watched him from across the table, her luminous eyes following his every motion with patient interest. Elias realized that while he might have woken up with a shock, he was not entirely alone, and somehow that was not such a bad thing after all. The morning air in Elias' apartment pod felt unusually bright and cheerful. After the strange yet surprisingly calm night with Lurali, he thought that perhaps the day would unfold quietly. He was wrong. By mid-morning, the station's AI pinged him through his wrist communicator. Elias Carter, please report to the Cultural Integration Office. Urgent advisory regarding domestic assignment protocols. Elias groaned. He had barely finished explaining to Lurali about boundaries, and now the AI wanted to escalate things. He stood up, brushing crumbs from his breakfast, and found Lurali already beside him. She had somehow anticipated the announcement and was carrying a small stack of data pads neatly folded in her three-fingered hands. Good morning, Elias, she said, her voice calm as ever. The station requires clarification on your response to my protocols. Shall we accompany you? He raised an eyebrow. Accompany me? You don't have to come. This is an adult thing. Understood, but I am your assigned assistant. My presence may assist in maintaining your composure during stressful social interactions, Lorali said. Elias sighed. Fine, let's go. The walk to the Cultural Integration Office was a mix of normal station life and alien curiosity. Species of all shapes and sizes moved along the corridors. Some had legs where humans had arms, others glowed from within, and a few had transparent skin revealing softly pulsing organs. Lorali moved beside Elias like a graceful shadow, occasionally glancing at him to make sure he was keeping pace. Elias noticed that her eyes seemed to absorb everything: body language, facial expressions, even subtle changes in voice tone. When they arrived, the office was surprisingly small but busy. A group of alien representatives sat around a circular table, each taking notes with different devices and gestures. In the center was a holographic projection of the station's AI. Ah, Elias Carter, the AI's synthesized voice chimed. We wish to discuss the implementation of domestic protocols observed in human care behavior. Elias swallowed. Implementation? You mean Lorali following me to bed? Yes, the AI replied. There appears to be a discrepancy between protocol interpretation and standard human consent practices. The Council has requested clarification. One of the Council members, a tall alien with 3 arms and a shimmering blue crest, leaned forward. We are not questioning the legality, it said in careful English, but we are concerned about emotional dependency. Human subjects appear unusually passive when domestic assistants apply the bonding protocol. Please explain. Elias took a deep breath, trying to keep his voice steady. Humans are complicated. We need comfort sometimes, but we also value independence. Just because someone enjoys being cared for doesn't mean they should be forced into it. Lorali added, her voice calm and measured. I now understand that humans require choice in emotional support. My presence is no longer mandatory in all personal spaces, only when requested. The Council members exchanged silent glances, whispering in languages Elias didn't understand. One of them, who looked like a crystal with shifting colors, tapped a claw against its lectern. And how does this affect your well-being, human? Are you comfortable with this arrangement? Elias paused, considering. On one hand, he had been woken by an alien in his bed, a situation that could have been deeply unsettling. On the other hand, the care Lorali provided was meticulous and respectful, even when it felt awkward. I am fine with it now that boundaries are clear, he said finally. Excellent, the AI said. The Council will update the human domestic care database accordingly. Lorali, your actions are within acceptable parameters. The Council session ended, but Elias left with a growing sense of absurdity. He had spent the morning negotiating his personal space like it was a matter of interstellar diplomacy, and Lorali had followed him faithfully, silently observing every step. When they returned to his apartment pod, Elias slumped into his chair. I can't believe this, he muttered. I wake up to an alien in my bed, and now the whole station council is involved in deciding if I'm allowed to be alone. Lorali tilted her head, her glowing eyes reflecting his exhaustion. Humans have complex rules regarding emotional autonomy. I am learning from your reactions. My purpose is to provide care without intrusion. Efficiency increases when rules are followed. Elias shook his head but couldn't help laughing. You're learning fast, she gave a small nod. Observation and adaptation are fundamental to successful integration. The next few days were a whirlwind of small, funny incidents. Lorali followed Elias everywhere, not in an intrusive way, but with subtle interventions that always seemed to help. If he misplaced a document, it would appear beside him moments later. If he forgot to hydrate or skip a meal, she would quietly remind him, sometimes preparing small snacks that perfectly matched his tastes. One morning, he was working in the common lounge, attempting to finish a report, when Lorali approached carrying a small tray with exactly the right kind of tea he preferred. He barely looked up, focused on his screen. You do know exactly how I like it, he said, more to himself than to her. Yes, she replied. Your preference patterns were recorded and analyzed. Predictive assistance maximizes satisfaction and minimizes stress. Elias leaned back, sipping the tea. It was perfect. He had to admit, though reluctantly, that it made life easier. Too easy, in fact. He was a human who prided himself on independence, yet here he was, relying on an alien to anticipate every need. Later that week, something unusual happened. One of the station's other alien domestic assistants approached him tentatively. "Elias Carter," it said, "we have received reports of unusual human bonding patterns caused by Lorali's protocol. We seek guidance." Elias blinked. "Guidance? You mean other aliens are copying her?" "Yes. Our species lack experience with your cultural nuances. Lorali's methods have caused widespread imitation." By the end of the day, Elias discovered that several apartments had quietly implemented sleep bonding routines. Humans were being tucked in by alien assistants, read to or provided with personalized comfort items, all without explicit request. It was chaos wrapped in politeness. He groaned. "I just wanted my own space, not a cultural revolution." Lorali, observing calmly, tilted her head. "Your species has complex emotional needs. The protocol was designed to improve welfare. That others adopted is logical." Elias threw his hands in the air. "Logical? Lorali, we are humans. We are illogical, unpredictable, and sometimes ridiculous. That's part of the point." She considered this. Observation noted. Unpredictability is a human trait. Protocol adjustments may be necessary to prevent overimplementation. The next challenge arrived in the form of a small group of human residents who came to Elias' apartment pod, curious about Lorali. "Wait, is that an alien maid?" one asked, eyes wide. "And she follows you around, sleeps in your bed," Elias groaned. "Not anymore, she's well, she used to, and now she just observes me." Lorali, standing quietly, smiled gently. "Observation without intrusion is the updated protocol. I respect human autonomy." The group of humans looked at each other, impressed, confused, and slightly envious. "Wow," one muttered. "You're basically the first human with a personal alien life coach." Elias muttered something under his breath that might have been agreement. It was flattering in a strange, ridiculous way, and yet slightly terrifying. Over the next several days, he found that Lorali's presence was changing him. He was sleeping better, feeling calmer, and even approaching his work with more focus. At the same time, he noticed subtle shifts in the station. Other aliens had begun experimenting with similar protocols, offering careful emotional support to humans who didn't ask for it, while others were copying small gestures, leaving personalized notes, arranging living spaces for comfort, or learning preferences of food and entertainment. Humans, of course, were reacting with a mixture of gratitude and bewilderment. "I don't know if this is good or weird," one resident told him. "I mean, it's nice, but also kind of too nice." Elias laughed. He understood perfectly. Humans liked comfort, but only on their own terms. Too much and it became unsettling. One evening, as the station's twin moons reflected across the glassy corridors, Elias and Lorali walked through the lounge. "You know," he said slowly, "this is kind of amazing. You're helping humans without even meaning to dominate or control. You're just being considerate." Lorali's eyes glowed slightly brighter. "Consideration is a cornerstone of effective service. Humans value autonomy, so assistants must respect boundaries. Efficiency is secondary to emotional compatibility." Elias shook his head, smiling. "You are way too organized for your own good, but thank you, really." Her expression softened. "Acknowledgement received, your appreciation improves relational efficiency. And your happiness contributes to overall station harmony." Elias laughed again, imagining a council of aliens noting that humans had complex needs, and learning that one alien could transform the social environment just by following simple rules of respect. By the end of part 2, Elias realized something. Life with Lorali was chaotic, unpredictable, and sometimes ridiculous. Yet it also made him think differently about humanity, about care, about boundaries, about choice. Humans were strange, complicated creatures, and now he had an alien companion who was beginning to understand them. And somehow, he found it comforting that he didn't have to face the galaxy alone anymore. Elias Carter thought he had seen everything when it came to alien curiosity about human habits, but he was wrong. After the events of the past few days, he realized that Lorali's careful attention to his comfort had triggered a ripple effect across the entire station. Everywhere he went, humans and aliens alike were trying to interpret and replicate what had happened in his apartment pod. The morning began with a polite knock on his door. Elias opened it to find a small delegation of aliens waiting, their postures perfectly straight, their glowing eyes focused. The leader, a tall being with translucent wings, spoke first. "Human Elias Carter, the council requests your presence immediately." There is an unusual accumulation of domestic protocol anomalies. Elias groaned. He had barely gotten used to Lorali's presence in his own life, and now the entire station council wanted to talk to him about it. Anomalies, I'm not sure Please come, the winged alien interrupted. Your input is required. Lorali, already beside him, gave a slight bow. It appears your cultural patterns are influencing other humans. The council seeks clarification to maintain social stability. Elias sighed and grabbed his jacket. As they walked through the bustling corridors of the station, he noticed subtle changes. Small groups of aliens were quietly observing humans, recording patterns of laughter, conversation, and even sleeping habits. Humans seemed mostly unaware of it, while Lorali moved beside him, noting everything with calm precision. When they reached the council chambers, the room was more crowded than usual. Alien representatives from dozens of species were present, some floating slightly above the floor, others with multiple limbs extended in complex gestures. In the center of the room, the station's AI projected a soft, glowing hologram. Elias Carter, the AI began, your domestic assistant's behavior has resulted in station-wide adoption of human bonding protocols. The Council has noted increased human comfort but also potential risks of dependency. Please explain your experience. Elias ran a hand through his hair and tried to find the right words. Look, humans are complicated. We value our independence, but we also value care. It's a balance. Lorali didn't force anything. She just followed guidelines she thought were helpful. That's it. The council members exchanged glances. One, a crystalline being that shimmered in multiple colors, tapped its lectern. Your species is unique. Unlike other species, humans endure stress when alone but resist intervention if unsolicited. How do you reconcile these contradictory behaviors? Elias blinked. We don't always reconcile them. We improvise. That's part of being human. Lorali added softly, observation. Humans require choice in receiving care. Mandatory assistance causes distress. Voluntary assistance enhances well-being. Protocol adjustments are now in effect. A murmur ran through the council. The winged alien who had escorted Elias leaned forward. So, Lorali acted according to initial protocols but adapted based on human feedback. This is unusual. Most species do not adjust without explicit instructions. Elias shrugged. Humans are weird that way. We notice, we think, we decide, sometimes slowly, sometimes all at once, but we do adapt. The AI projected a chart showing a sudden spike in human interaction with domestic assistants. Data indicates increased engagement, decreased stress levels, and heightened satisfaction among human residents, the AI reported. Council requests guidelines to prevent potential over-reliance while preserving positive outcomes. Elias took a deep breath. The only guideline you really need is choice. Let humans decide when they want support and when they want space. That's it. Everything else adapt, observe, respect. The council members paused, processing the simplicity of the statement. One alien tilted its head in curiosity. And humans manage to thrive with this system? Elias smiled. We do. Sometimes we fail, sometimes we succeed, but choice makes all the difference. Forcing care is useless. Offering it respectfully, that's how you make a human feel supported without controlling them. Lorali's eyes glowed faintly, as if signaling agreement. Observation confirmed. Emotional autonomy is essential. My future interactions will adhere strictly to consent-based assistance. The council session ended with a sense of cautious approval. The winged alien nodded politely. Very well. Your input has been invaluable. Protocols will be updated to reflect human choice. Elias exhaled, rubbing his forehead. I can't believe I just lectured an interspecies council about human boundaries. Lorali tilted her head, as if amused. Your species' cultural patterns are challenging to interpret. Teaching them ensures clarity for all involved. After returning to his apartment, Elias noticed something remarkable. The station had begun adjusting quietly. Aliens who had started copying Lorali's behaviors were now seeking permission before offering assistance. Notes of consent appeared in communication pads, and small rituals of care became optional rather than automatic. It was a subtle yet profound change. Elias sat at his desk, reflecting on the last few days. He had woken up with an alien in his bed, negotiated boundaries with meticulous patience, and indirectly caused a policy shift across the entire station. The thought made him laugh. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but sometimes that unpredictability shaped the galaxy in ways aliens hadn't anticipated. Lurali, as always, was nearby, her eyes following him as he typed. "You appear contemplative," she said. "I'm thinking about humans," Elias replied. "How strange we are, how stubborn and stubbornly adaptive, and how something as simple as sleep and comfort can change the way others treat us." Lurali nodded, softly glowing. "Observation, your reflection aligns with positive human traits. Resilience, autonomy, and adaptability. These qualities are valued in cross-species interactions." Elias smiled. "I guess that's what being human is, figuring out how to survive, care, and connect without losing yourself, even if it means confusing aliens along the way." Lurali tilted her head in thought. "Observation noted. Confusion is temporary, understanding is cumulative. Your species exhibits high efficiency in self-directed social learning." Over the following days, Elias noticed a series of small but profound changes. Alien assistants, inspired by Lurali's methods, began asking questions before helping, learning preferences only after being told, and waiting for consent before taking action. Humans seemed calmer, happier, and more independent than before. One evening, as Elias returned from a long day at work, he found Lurali arranging his apartment. She had moved a few plants to better catch sunlight, organized his books according to genre, and even left a small note on the table. "Your evening tea is prepared. Please enjoy at leisure." Elias shook his head, chuckling. "You really do take this seriously, don't you?" Lurali smiled. "Efficiency in service maximizes well-being. Observation, you seem content with minor adjustments to your environment." "I am," Elias admitted. "But it's weird, this feels too good, like I'm not doing anything myself." Her response was gentle. "Support is intended to complement, not replace human initiative. Your decisions remain primary." That night, as he prepared for bed, Elias felt an unexpected calm. He had learned to negotiate boundaries, guide cross-species understanding, and witness the ripple effect of one alien's careful observation. Humans were strange, yes, but their complexity was also their strength. The ability to adapt, decide, and maintain autonomy even under influence. It was uniquely human. He glanced at Lurali standing quietly by the window. "You know," he said, "you're changing the way this station thinks about humans, not with force or rules, but with care." Her eyes glowed warmly. "Observation, intentional care is more effective than coercion. Your species thrives when autonomy is respected. Protocol adjustments across the station are a testament to this principle." Elias smiled. "I guess humans really are something else." As he lay down that night, he felt a strange sense of peace. He wasn't alone, yet he had control over his space and choices. He realized that the galaxy was full of beings eager to understand, imitate, and care. But it was up to humans to guide them, not through fear or power, but through clarity, consent, and the simple act of being themselves. And somewhere deep inside, he knew that this was only the beginning. The station had settled into a new rhythm since the council meeting, and Elias noticed it almost everywhere he went. Humans were still humans, busy, stubborn, unpredictable, but the subtle changes brought about by Lurali's careful observation were impossible to miss. Alien assistants were no longer intruding without permission. Instead, they politely asked whether their help was wanted. Humans, in turn, seemed calmer, more focused, and far more willing to engage with their lives without feeling pressured or overwhelmed. Elias had started to feel comfortable with the quiet rhythm of his own apartment pod. He had his mornings, his work, his meals, and his evenings largely uninterrupted. Lurali was still there, of course, quietly attending to the space around him, but she had learned to maintain a careful balance between presence and invisibility. Yet one evening, something shifted. Lurali approached him while he was reviewing reports at his desk. "Elias," she said softly, "I have a request." Elias looked up, blinking. "A request? You're the assistant, you don't request things." "I have observed your species extensively," she said, "and I now understand that emotional support is effective only when chosen, not enforced. I wish to continue accompanying you, not as a mandated assistant, but as a voluntary companion. This allows me to respect your autonomy fully while still providing support when desired." Elias leaned back in his chair, trying to process the statement. Lurali was asking to redefine her role, not out of necessity, but out of choice. The concept was foreign in the strict protocols of alien service, where obedience and structure were prioritized. Yet somehow it felt right. "So, you want to stay," he said slowly, "but not as my maid. You want to be what exactly?" "A companion. One who is present only when consent is given. One who may participate in your life voluntarily, respecting your space and decisions," Lorali explained. "I wish to act with intention, not compulsion." Elias considered this. The idea was unusual, but the more he thought about it, the more it made sense. Humans thrived on choice, and so did meaningful relationships. To have someone who genuinely wanted to be with you, without obligation, was rare and valuable. "All right," he said finally, a smile tugging at his lips. "We can try it, but we'll have to figure out what this actually means in practice." Lorali's eyes glowed softly. "Observation, we shall define our parameters together." The next few days were a delicate dance of adjustment. Lorali no longer moved to anticipate every need automatically. Instead, she waited for Elias to ask or indicate interest. She still tidied his apartment, prepared meals, and reminded him of important tasks, but only when prompted. At first, Elias felt strange. He had grown used to her quiet efficiency, and suddenly he had to consciously request help. But over time, he realized it made her presence feel lighter, freer, and even more respectful. One morning, as he prepared breakfast, he realized that he had forgotten to turn off a small kitchen appliance. Before he could react, Lorali's calm voice spoke from behind him. "Elias, would you like me to turn it off for you?" He nodded. "Yes, please." She moved silently, performing the action with precise care, and stepped back. "Task completed. Is this acceptable?" "It is," he replied, smiling. The difference was subtle but significant. He had regained control over his space, yet he still benefited from her care when he chose it. Word of this arrangement spread slowly through the station. Other humans observed Elias and Lorali, noticing the new model of companionship: voluntary, respectful, and cooperative. The concept fascinated aliens and humans alike. A few station residents approached him privately. "That's clever," one said. "You've essentially rewritten what personal assistance means here." Elias shrugged. "It's simple, really. Respect boundaries, give choice. Let people decide how much support they want. That's it." Meanwhile, Lorali began to experiment with small, thoughtful ways to enhance his day. She learned which books he enjoyed most during quiet evenings, which teas calmed him when work became stressful, and even subtle ways to arrange furniture to improve comfort and lighting. Elias began to notice these small gestures, not as intrusion but as deliberate acts of consideration. One afternoon, while Elias was reviewing reports, Lorali approached with a small tray. On it was a cup of tea and a neatly folded napkin. "Observation, you appear fatigued. May I offer this for your refreshment?" Elias looked at her and smiled. "You may." As he sipped the tea, he realized something remarkable. He had grown accustomed to having Lorali around, but it no longer felt like dependence. It felt like partnership, an unusual but rewarding kind. She was careful, respectful, and genuinely interested in his well-being, yet she never forced her presence. He found himself appreciating her attentiveness not because he needed it, but because it was freely given. The next shift in their relationship came unexpectedly. One evening, Elias returned from a long day at work to find Lorali standing by the window, gazing at the stars. She did not speak immediately, simply observing the lights of the station and the galaxy beyond. "I never realized," Elias said softly, "how quiet this place can be when you're alone or when you choose your company." Lorali turned slightly, her luminous eyes meeting his. "Observation, solitude is important for reflection and self-assessment. Choice enhances both presence and absence." He smiled, feeling a sense of warmth he couldn't quite describe. "It's strange," he said. "I used to think that being alone meant being lonely, but with you, I feel like I can choose when to be with someone and when to just exist. And that makes the quiet moments better." Her glow dimmed slightly, a subtle acknowledgement of his words. "Observation, voluntary companionship improves satisfaction and emotional resilience. Your species benefits greatly from autonomy." Days turned into weeks, and their arrangement became smoother, more natural. Elias continued his work and social life, attending meetings, interacting with colleagues, and enjoying personal hobbies. Lorali remained nearby, observing, assisting when asked, and quietly learning. Her presence was no longer a disruption, but a subtle enhancement, a gentle, thoughtful partnership. One afternoon, a council representative approached him during a routine station check. Elias Carter, the alien said, reports indicate that your voluntary companionship model has been observed by other residents. It is influencing policy and cultural understanding. Would you explain your methods? Elias blinked. Methods, it's simple, respect boundaries. Ask for consent, give support when wanted, that's it. The alien considered this, its glowing eyes brightening slightly. Unusual, effective. Your species demonstrates a high level of social intelligence. We are recording your observations for further study. Elias shrugged. Humans are weird, yes, but we understand people better than anyone else sometimes. And it seems that when you give someone choice, even an alien, it works wonders. Back in his apartment, he sat quietly with Lurali, reflecting on the changes. You know, he said, this has become comfortable. Not because you're taking care of me, but because you're letting me decide how much care I want. And somehow that makes it better than having it forced. Lurali nodded, her glow steady and warm. Observation. Autonomy enhances satisfaction. Your response confirms the principle. Elias smiled. For the first time since he had woken up with a glowing alien in his bed, he felt fully at ease. Lurali's presence no longer felt overwhelming or intrusive. Instead, it was intentional, balanced, and respectful. She had chosen to be part of his life in a way that honored his humanity while maintaining her own purpose. That night, as he lay down to sleep, he realized something profound. Humans often believed that relationships required constant attention, constant effort, and sometimes obligation. But Lurali had shown him a different way. That care could be freely given, freely accepted, and still deeply meaningful. He closed his eyes, feeling the calm assurance of choice, companionship, and understanding. The galaxy was wide, full of strange species, complex systems, and endless possibilities. Yet here in his small apartment pod, he had discovered something simple but extraordinary. Respect, autonomy, and voluntary companionship could be the strongest bonds of all. And as he drifted into sleep, he knew that this was only the beginning of a partnership that would continue to challenge, teach, and enrich both human and alien alike.